You got to be willing to do the vulnerable work though. Like you got to admit, I am a little bit less of a manager than I should be. Or, I want to do more leadership work. I want to do more thought work. Some, depending on the season of life each leader's at, they kind of got to come to terms with what is their highest and best use of their time and value.
Welcome to Gone to Texas, the official podcast of the Texas Economic Development Connection. On every episode, we share the stories of business owners and CEOs who have relocated or expanded their business into Texas. Our goal is to use these stories as a guide to help others who are ready to hang a sign on the door that says, Gone to Texas. And now, please welcome your host, the Managing Partner and Chief Inspiration Officer for Day One Experts, Super Dave Quinn.
Hi, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Gone to Texas podcast, powered by Day One Experts, where we share real stories of business growth, relocation, and entrepreneurship here in the Lone Star State. I'm your host, Super Dave Quinn, and today's episode is brought to you by our friends at the Fairview Economic Development Corporation, a community that believes growth should be intentional, aligned, and built to last. Our guest is Jeff Schafer, a certified EOS implementer based right here in North Texas. Jeff helps leadership teams simplify complexity, clarify their vision, and execute on what matters. This conversation is about what happens after you move to Texas and how you make sure your team is strong enough to grow here. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Super Dave.
Man, it's always good to see you. Yeah, I know. Thanks for joining us. I know I always love getting down to sit and talk to you. I always feel much better. And I feel much more, not emboldened, but confident maybe about where we are. You always make me feel like, okay, there's something good I'm doing and working on. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, you've got lots going on. I mean, you're in the niche. You're in the zone. You don't see it. You can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. So.
I love when you say that because I feel like that. I'm like, if I could just get outside the bottle and read, maybe that would be helpful.
That's what I'm here to read the label for you. I'm not like some sort of guru or something. I'm just a guy who can read labels for you.
I like it. Well, so before we get into the EOS and what that is, I think it's important to give us a little bit of the backstory so that people know, our audience are business owners who are looking to move into Texas and grow their business. And, if they've never had an experience like that, again, they can't read the labels. So let's give them a little bit of your backstory so that, it kind of sets the stage for your credibility and where you are and having walked that path before.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur. I got my start in Vancouver, Canada. So my venture to Texas came from far away. I expanded my services company to Frisco, where I found my true home. I should have been here the whole time. Didn't realize it till I got here. This is the place for me and my family. I grew and expanded my company in every way possible. I had more staff. I was across multiple time zones. I had bigger clients, more clients, I had all the things. But the business was kind of sucking the life out of me. So part of my story is that I actually sold my business while I was here, sold it to a group out of Cleveland. And they hired me back into the business. So when they hired me back, we talked about, how are we going to grow this thing? And I realized I didn't have the burden of ownership and just like having to make some of the bigger decisions. I now it's somebody else's. And I said, I'm not sure what you're going to do with your new asset, but they did say, hey, let's read this book. I actually got a copy here. Said, would you like to read this book and maybe we follow this traction thing? I said, yeah, let's give that a shot. So over 3 years, I watched the company that I didn't own anymore. I watched it triple in size. So every lesson I learned while I was following this coach teach me these things, I was really taking it to heart. So after that business and before the pandemic, I built a few more businesses and one failed fast. I knew what good and bad was after going through that experience. And one company, I took on a startup and I 5X'd it in 1 year. And it was during that time with those leaders in that company, I realized I don't want to I don't want to run a company anymore. I want to help people with this EOS thing. So I just sold it all off and became a full-time EOS implementer.
Man, I love that. Not that you had to go through all that pain and stuff, but the fact that you've walked through that and then realized where your purpose and passion lies. I am a big believer in purpose and passion, and this is why we do what we do at the Connection and Day One Experts. It's how do we help people do what they love to do, but like so they can do it better to maximize their potential. So I love that. When we're talking about moving a company, what's something that is harder than people expect? Was there something for you that when you made that move that, that was a little harder than what you thought it might be?
Yeah, coming from another country, I will say tax and legal implications were very on my radar. There were people in Canada telling me, hey, when you go to Texas, they're going to eat you alive, man. You're not like, it's all big companies there. There is no developed, mid-sized company. But when I got here, I realized the culture here for doing business is so much, it's especially in Texas. It is excellent. People want to have opportunity style discussions. And that's why I said earlier, like I should have been here the whole time because from the far north where I'm from, it's almost like a little secret handshake dance you have to do to get to actually be able to do business with somebody. Whereas here, I just feel like it's a lot easier. And there's a lot of resources and people like Super Dave Quinn who can help you figure out, who do I need to know or what am I supposed to do? There's just so much, there's so much here, so much opportunity.
I think that what surprises people is we tell them it's a business friendly. And I think generally they think in terms of taxes and regulations and those kind of things. What they miss or sometimes don't believe is how when you meet people, they generally want to help you succeed at whatever it is. Like we want you to be a winner in Texas. And I don't know that they're used to that. And so I think what you're talking about is what you discovered is it is a place where other people are trying to help you as much as they are trying to help themselves build their business.
Oh yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll tell you, one thing that comes to mind is like taxation and finance. Where I was, you really had to fight really hard to find the right people to talk to. Whereas here, I could throw a rock and people would be like, oh, you're this size of business. And, oh, we've got many clients like that. We can help you. Oh, you're worried about those laws. We just take care of that here for you. And I couldn't get over the level of financial help that I could find here in the DFW. So that really helped my business because that's not an area that I enjoy.
That's awesome. So you obviously have worked with a lot of small business owners now since switching over to the EOS side. What are some of the same are there some operational mistakes that you see keep coming up over and over again that, that you work with folks so that they can avoid those things?
Yeah. The biggest thing that I see is folks understanding the difference between leadership and management. Leadership is more of thinking. And often there's a visionary leader in charge who's thinking about what the risks are, what the great opportunities are. But typically those folks are not great managers. But they kind of have to save face to their leaders, to everybody else. And so those folks are really they're really best off when they have somebody who they trust who can do the day-to-day management. In EOS speak, we call those two roles, visionary and integrator. And when I find a visionary in the integrator position in a company, you see these spikes of energy and then it fades, spikes and it fades. They're just everybody's chasing this visionary and then he changes directions and they can't keep up to him. So, sound familiar, Dave? So I'm just saying I see that, but I see that that's everywhere. That's why EOS has worldwide in the name, because regardless of vertical, the EOS system for running a business works across all of them. And it helps you sort of decipher who should be the visionary and who should be the integrator and how do we get these two to play nice together? When you figure that out and follow a system and learn some simple tools, your business can be just unlocked and you can find potential that you never found. Not only like at an individual level, but the whole company can move. So I think people often underestimate what they can do as a group. So
Yeah. Well, I can
that's the
tell you
only-
that sounds amazing. As a small business owner, unlocking potential and having it be and feel like freedom instead of a grind, and sort of just keep, wearing yourself out and your team out because you're constantly chasing things. That does sound amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
You got to be willing to do the vulnerable work, though. Like you got to admit, oh, I am a little bit less of a manager than I should be, or, I want to do more leadership work. I want to do more thought work. Some, depending on the season of life each leader's at, they kind of got to come to terms with what is their highest and best use of their time and value. So,
you talk a lot about gaining clarity around vision and accountability, and making sure you're in the right spot and how that helps reduce chaos. I've talked to so many business owners who are thinking about coming, and it's before I was a business owner, I thought it was just about the business side. Now I realize there's such a human side as well, because you're picking your family up, your key employees' families, and it's not just the business side. It is the chaos extends both, on the on the business side and the family side. Is talk a little bit how, gaining clarity on the business side helps on, some of that personal side too, and being really clear about what you're trying to accomplish.
well, let's face it, we spend most of our waking hours at work, right? We wish we could spend more than the weekends with our family, but we spend a lot of time with our coworkers. And so, if the folks around us are always in a defensive position, they don't feel like they're being treated well, and if we don't feel like we're treating well, we're not going to be very effective. Having that clarity that you're talking of, it's kindness. Clarity is kindness. So how can we get work done and be kind? How can we get along? You have to be able to answer that question, or people will, you don't really see their potential. So as a business leader, looking out for the greater good, you kind of need to look out for your people as well as you do for all the systems and processes in place. It's a balance that should be created in order to get the most out of everything.
I think that's, when we frame that in our mind that way, I think that helps a lot.
Well, if you think of the teams that you've been a part of where the highest success was, it wasn't like you were worried about defending or offending anyone. Kindness was an expectation. Values were an expectation that everybody aligned with values. That's when the greatest successes are happening. So you have to align around that.
Right. And I love I love the work you do, because you're helping teams discover, find, and then work around that and lean into what you're talking about.
Well, I'll tell you, I did it the wrong way for over like decades before. I may not look that old, but I'm telling you, I was active for years, trying to just come up with the best recipe, the best process. I complicated things, and I'd look at it and say, look, it's simple. And everybody would look at me and go, yeah, it's simple. And they were lying to me because I was the boss. And I would, to me, it made sense, but it didn't make sense to them. And it took going through EOS. Like my company tripled in 3 years that I had built. And one key ingredient was core values, and getting a team and leaders that are willing to hire and fire based on core values. Reward and recognize folks based on those values. It's a key ingredient that people feel like they're going to be supported and safe. And, you're probably getting 20 or 30% out of the folks that you have that you're already investing in, if they don't feel like they can do their thing. So you got to unlock that while you're unlocking a lot of other little simple things. And when you do that, this really works. So.
Man, I love that. So talk a little bit about how important it is to find the right community, like, a Fairview or a Frisco, or, when companies are trying to scale, how important it is to find your place, right? We talk a lot about business owners coming into Texas, and it's easy to say Texas and just assume we're all one thing. But as you know, living here now, every community has a personality and
Yes.
a feel. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh man, when I first got here, I was a little intimidated by the growth where I hung my hat. And so when I first sort of reached out to the community to say, hey, I'm a new coach. This was years ago. I went to McKinney, one town over. I thought, whatever I do to mess it up, I want to be one town over. It was a crazy, anyways, I went one town over, but I realized I love McKinney. Oh my goodness. The chamber there's just a lot of good people. And what I didn't realize that I learned was there's a lot of people who just all want the same thing and they're doing the same things. And you just, if you provide value for them, they'll provide value for you. It's not you could overcomplicate it. You could go to the next town over, but you don't need to. I was blown away. All I did was I went to some chamber meetings and some chamber things, and I met the sponsors and I talked to the speakers, and I with no expectation to get anything back. I was just seeing how I could provide value. And I created some relationships now that have been very good for them, very good for me, just by getting to know folks that were very willing and open to help in the same way. So it's not what I expected. I expected a beat down. It wasn't.
Howdy, friends. This episode of Gone to Texas podcast is brought to you by the Fairview Economic Development Corporation, where business owners find more than just a location. They find a community. Tucked into the heart of Collin County, Fairview is a North Texas community offering small and mid-sized businesses the space to grow, access to thrive, and the quality of life to keep your team inspired. Whether you're expanding, relocating, or starting fresh, Fairview has what you need. Shovel-ready sites, smart incentives, and a forward-thinking town that still feels like home. Want to hear more from the folks already making it work here? Tune in to Getting Neighborly, our local podcast celebrating the people, places, and purpose-driven businesses that make Fairview special. Because here in Fairview, Texas, you're not just a business, you're a neighbor. Learn more at fairviewtexasedc.com. Fairview, Texas, where community meets opportunity. So let's talk about separating the companies that stall from and scale. You talked about how you worked for so long, and then once you sort of transitioned over as to an employee and they started using EOS, they were able to scale. What is that? What separates those companies?
The ones that stall and the ones that grow?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I think the biggest thing that separates them is this question of, is this a growth business or is this a lifestyle business? There's such a thing as, like, when you hit the ceiling with a business, it's either plateaus or it goes down. And you know the stats, companies that decline, 50% of businesses that start are gone in 2 years. At 5 years, 80%. So some of them they just go nowhere. Some plateau, and that was my company. And then some find a way to get past that ceiling. So the ones who plateau, if they really have a heart, like they have a heart discussion of, do we want to grow this? Or do we just like the fact that it pays for our car leases? We like the lifestyle that's provided. Or do we want a different lifestyle? Do we actually want to grow? Do we want to have more freedoms and more doors open to us? It's not like you're gambling and you put your chips on everything and say, I want a little bit of both. You have to really decide which one you want, because when you started the business, you weren't thinking lifestyle, you were thinking growth. At some point people get comfortable and they're like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. But and they know that discomfort equals growth. So they just have to ask themselves, are we going into a season when we're going to introduce some discomfort in order to grow? And then we'll look back and say, oh my goodness, I love the profit I've built. I love that I've got, more security now as an individual and in the company. And now I can do more with that I've grown, but it was hard to get there. So that's what that looks like. And that's the question that folks should be asking themselves. Which one do I want more, discomfort or growth? And for the folks who want to talk to me, I basically give them like 90 minutes of free coaching, because I'm actually just seeing if they are growth or lifestyle. And the ones I typically work with look me in the eye and say, I want the growth. I want the growth. And if they want the growth, I'm like, okay, let's go do that. But if there's any hint of like, I like being comfortable, I'm like, well, hey, just call me when you're in pain. Call me when you're ready. So I'll be around if you ever want to grow.
So for our listeners who today are sort of hearing this and are in that overwhelmed, they feel overwhelmed. They're in a company that it's, it's hard to explain as if you're not a business owner, it might be hard to understand, but you're in this overwhelmed, like there's so much opportunity, potential, you want to grow, and you're just fighting, you're moving so that you can. What's the first step for them? Like, is it reading traction? What is the first step of sort of saying, okay, I know I'm in pain, I want to be better. What's that first step look like?
Well, there's a couple first steps, few ways. And I like to give these options because I've learned as a coach, you got to meet people where they're at. Some people
Right.
are ready for some things. Some people are ready for other things. So I will say, if somebody's really ready, then yeah, just call me. Just have a 15-minute call. That's what I'm here for. I will call and we just have a discussion, just figure out what does that mean. So that's an easy first step. Second step, it's the first thing we talked about. And that is, you can't read the label if you're inside the jar. Maybe think about getting some help from anybody. If it's not me, have somebody who's an expert look from the outside and tell you, what do I see? Because you can't sometimes see yourself. So consider, a lot of people, and I was one of them, they're like, I got this. Hold my beer, I got this. Oh, more obstacles. Let me figure it out. And you know what? Sometimes you need somebody to, so consider that and find that person. But then another sort of first step is, and this one's for the operational minded, and that is, consider that you might need a system to run your business and that you are not that system. And I don't care if EOS is a system or there's many ways you can systemize your business, but really most people want to build a business to be able to sell it. So if you have your business running on a system, one day, and this is what my clients tell me when they get to a certain stage, they say, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do anymore. I have all this free time because it's just running. And now I can, if I ever want to sell it, they know that I'm not a key part of it. And consider that if you have a system, you have this ability to have freedom to walk away, to sell it, or to get involved at whatever level you want, but it runs itself. So that's what a system can do for you. Consider, if not EOS, consider any system. My wish is that anybody just has a system, because building your own system or being your own system, I did all that I just wish I could take that time back, because it's not as complicated as I made it. And the only advice I give is just not to overcomplicate. Keep it simple, call somebody, ask somebody to tell you what they see, or have a system. Those are very simple things.
And it's so hard to do though, right? Like, I'm man enough, I'm tough enough, and my gosh, I'm going to make this work. I can do it. And it is hard to recognize, maybe I need some help. Speaking from experience, I don't know about other people, but from me, I know that's seems to be a little of my experience.
I relate to that. Yeah. Yeah. It's either you're a little proud of your direction, or they tell you that you're the guy and they keep telling you, oh, all decisions run through you. And you're like, but should they? Because I pay you to make decisions. So there's that. And then there's the smartest guy in the room thing. And somebody told me this early on, and this is where I knew I didn't have it figured out. This is what caused me to sell my business before EOS. Somebody reminded me that when you're the owner, you should be hiring the smartest guy in the room. You should not be the smartest guy in the room. That really was the impetus of me hiring more senior level folks. And it really grew my business to a point where I realized now that's hard to manage. Then I sold the business, but that was a big lesson that I can't be the smartest guy in the room. So since then, I've never been the smartest guy in the room, and it's been great. I'm never the smartest guy in the room, and I like that. It works well for me. So,
well, you are. If me and you're in the room, you're going to be the smartest guy in the room. So I like hanging out in the room with you, because then I get to be in a room with the smartest guy in the room. So.
You're the smartest economic developer guy in the room. I mean, I don't know.
It's like me telling my daughter she's my favorite daughter, and she's the only one, I think. So. Hey, so when you think about, as we wrap up here, so, thinking about North Texas and communities like Fairview, what makes it such a strong environment for growing, these small to medium-sized business owners like we talked about? What makes it so special? What makes the environment such a great place for small business owners?
I can't put a finger on it, but and this is hard for me to describe entirely, but I think it's a cultural thing. There's something that I learned when I naturalized as a citizen here, And that is that, and I didn't understand this. And I don't think anybody from another country understands this to the level, unless they live here, as I have since 2010. And that is, freedom is a value in America, especially in Texas. And when you have a lot of people with that in common, I find that we all put that up very high on the list here. And so we're all fighting for that, for each other to have that. And it makes North Texas, there's something about the culture. It doesn't have to do with anything other than the fact that we value that here. And coming from somewhere far away, I will say that makes North Texas very unique, because that value shines very bright here in Texas and in North Texas especially. So, and I've worked and lived in many places in the world. And I will say that this is by far one of the, well, it is the greatest place to work. That's why I'm here. So if anybody's like thinking, hey, should I do it or should I not do it? If that's something you value, be here. This is a place for it. We care about it.
I love it.
So
yeah, we do.
I don't know, like other states from state to state, I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I can speak to my experience. And I will say that that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm not leaving. This is why I'm here.
Oh, man.
I love serving the people here. So that's,
All right.
yeah.
That's good. So, all right, before we jump off, tell us something that you do to reset. What's something you do in your off time when you're not working? What's your, a hobby or something that lets you sort of get back and grounded?
Well, I feel like this is going to be a rerun for you. You would already know, because I always talk about it. Up north of McKinney, there's a mountain bike trail called Irwin Trail. And what I do is, I used to be a mountain bike racer in Canada when I was a kid. And so I sort of relive my past glory by just doing loops on this trail, this 12-mile trail, every chance I get. And I go on Strava and I look, am I going faster than the previous time? Right now I'm a little slow, but I really enjoy it. If the sun is out, I'm up there riding the trail. So you will see me on a blue bike and the blue streak up there. So that I'm doing that kind of thing.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. We appreciate you being on today. Thank you for joining us. And folks, thank you for being with us. If you want to learn more about Fairview, Texas, and why growing companies choose to build here with intention, visit gonetotexaspodcast.com/sponsors. You'll find information there. And if you're a leadership team that's looking for clarity and alignment, Jeff offers free introductory sessions. He mentioned that a little bit to help you simplify that complexity. I highly recommend connecting with him. If nothing else, that 90 minutes can shift your mindset and your perception and your reality, I think, to a point where even just that 90-minute call could have radical implications to your business. And so, Jeff, I thank you again for offering that to our listeners. I appreciate that. And folks, thanks for joining us on the Gone to Texas podcast. So please like, share, subscribe so more business owners can discover what's possible here in the Lone Star State. If you're tired of red tape, high cost, and feeling stuck where you are, this is your invitation to come to Texas. The Texas Economic Development Connection exists to help you skip the runaround and connect directly with people and places ready to help you grow your business. So visit us today at texasedconnection.com. Set up your free call and learn how we can help you move to Texas. I'm your host, Super Dave Quinn, and saying bye for now. And until next time, make it a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Gone to Texas, the official podcast of the Texas Economic Development Connection, powered by Day One Experts, a collection of the country's best-known economic development professionals offering on-demand services to communities across the nation.